Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta, and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. The United States and the United Kingdom seal a major trade deal with implications for global markets. Bitcoin soars past $100,000 as investors' confidence returns on trade optimism. World leaders congratulate Pope Leo XIV, the first American pontiff in Catholic history. And billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates vows to donate his entire $200 billion fortune by 2045. The United States and the United Kingdom finalize a breakthrough trade deal with wide-ranging implications for global markets and trading partners like the Philippines. U.S. President Donald Trump and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer agree to impose a 10% baseline tariff on most UK goods entering the United States. In exchange, the UK will slash tariffs on American products from 5.1% to 1.8% and provide greater market access to U.S. exporters. The White House also confirms that tariffs on the first 100,000 British-made vehicles imported to the U.S. each year will be cut to 10%. Any additional vehicles will still face a higher 25% duty. Trade analysts say the deal is a strategic win for both economies and could reshape supply chains amid a global wave of protectionism.
With this deal, the UK joins the United States in affirming that reciprocity and fairness is an essential and vital principle of international trade. The deal includes billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, dramatically increasing access for American beef, ethanol, and virtually all of the products produced by our great farmers. And our Secretary, as you know, of Agriculture is here. Brooke, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, sir.
You'll let the farmers know. In addition, the UK will reduce or eliminate numerous non-tariff barriers that unfairly discriminated against American products.
Let's take a look at how global markets moved overnight. U.S. stocks rallied on Thursday as investors welcomed a new trade deal between the United States and Britain. Markets also got a boost after President Donald Trump signaled that upcoming talks with China may be more substantial than previously expected. Under the new agreement, the UK will cut its tariffs to just 1.8% from over 5%, while expanding access for U.S. goods. But Washington is keeping a 10% baseline tariff on British imports, including a cap on UK car exports. Investors are watching for next steps as the deal signals a possible reset in Washington's trade strategy with global implications.
Today, we're having a great reaction, and that's primarily due to the tariffs, again, coming to a resolution with the United Kingdom, with the UK. And I kind of feel with tariffs, it feels like 2 steps forwards, 1 step back, 2 steps forwards, 1 step back, but we're trending higher in the markets. So I really like the market reaction. I think it's doing very well. It doesn't mean that we can't have more volatility, but I think the worst is over for the markets. I think the low is already set.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 0.6%. The S&P 500 gained 0.6% as well, and the Nasdaq rose a bit more, up by 1.1%. Over in Europe, these stocks ended mixed. London's FTSE 100 dipped 0.3%, while Germany's DAX rose 1%, and France's CAC 40 gained 0.9%. Here at home, the Philippines' dollar reserves fall to $104.6 billion as of end April, the lowest level in 3 months, signaling tighter external buffers amid global uncertainty. Data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, shows gross international reserves down nearly 2% from March's $106.7 billion. This is also the lowest level since January's $103.27 billion print. The BSP explains that the decline reflects the national government's higher foreign debt payments. Reserves remain adequate, equivalent to 7.7 months' worth of imports, still well above the IMF's comfort level. With global trade tensions rising and the peso strengthening, analysts say that the BSP will need to balance reserve management with external stability, especially as markets anticipate rate cuts later this year. The Philippine economy grows 5.4% in the first quarter of 2025, fueled by strong household spending. But the figure is still slower than what was recorded in the same period last year. With inflation cooling and interest rates easing, officials say there's now more room to stimulate investments and sustain momentum through the rest of the year. Sujin Kim has the details.
The Philippine economy grew by 5.4% in the first quarter of 2025, according to the latest data from the Philippine Statistics Authority. Although slightly higher than the previous quarter, this performance is a sharp deceleration from the 5.9% growth recorded in the same period last year.
So while this pace falls short of our initial expectations, it reflects developments from the broader global context of tempered economic activity amid persistent uncertainties.
The country's total economic output reached 6.587 trillion pesos. Key drivers of growth included retail trade, financial services, and manufacturing, underscoring the continued importance of domestic commerce and services to economic activity. On the expenditure side, household spending remained the strongest contributor to growth, followed by public expenditure and construction investments, reflecting robust domestic demand.
Domestic demand remained a key pillar of growth. Easing food inflation supported household final consumption, which grew by 5.3% year-on-year, which is faster than the 4.7% growth recorded in Q4.
Trade remained a drag on growth as imports outpaced exports, resulting in another quarter of trade deficit. While gross national income rose by 7.5%, DepDev officials acknowledged that breaking out of the middle income trap remains a structural challenge.
Our challenge is really to get out of this middle income trap. And to be able to get out of this middle income trap hopefully very quickly, it's really about being able to diversify. So it has to do with economic diversification, has to do with technology adoption. With technology adoption, then you can have greater labor productivity.
With inflation easing and interest rates softening, DepDev believes there is room for monetary policy to support capital markets and investment activity.
We think that there's really room for more easing. And if we can have deep capital markets, that's the first one. And if we can have a lower cost of financing, lower cost of investments by this positive policy action, then that can really boost investments. So it will be really very positive for growth.
Despite the slowdown, the government is still aiming for its full-year GDP target of 6 to 7%. According to DepDev, the economy needs to grow by at least 6.2% for the rest of the year to meet the low end of that range, a pace they still consider attainable.
So for the rest of the year, we need to grow by 6.2% in order to achieve the lower end of in order to grow by 6% for the whole year of 2025. This is actually within the range of possibilities.
Next week, the Development Budget Coordination Committee is set to convene to review its macroeconomic assumptions in light of the latest GDP data. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Department of Trade and Industry vows targeted support for key sectors to boost market access and attract high-quality investments. Trade Secretary Cristina Roque says these initiatives are designed to ensure inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Roque describes the 5.4% GDP growth in the first quarter as a sign of the country's resilience, driven by strong consumer spending and industrial momentum. She also credits the latest expansion to the dedication of Filipino businesses and consumers who continue to power the economy despite the global headwinds. The Asian Development Bank plans to lend an additional $4 billion to the Philippines to fund major infrastructure projects. The ADB says the loans will support flagship initiatives, including the Bataan-Cavite Interlink Bridge and the Laguna Lakeshore Reclamation Project. Last year, the Philippines received over $6 billion in loans, making it the second largest recipient of ADB financing. Overall, the multilateral lender has set aside up to $24 billion for the Philippines from 2024 to 2029, prioritizing connectivity, climate resilience, and sustainable urban development. CIS party list representative Erwin Tulfo leads the latest senatorial preference survey conducted by the social weather stations. Tulfo is followed by Senator Bongo and former Senate President Lito Soto. Lito Lapid and Ben Tulfo are statistically tied for 4th and 5th place. Others in the projected Magic 12 include Bato de la Rosa, Camille Villar, Bong Revilla, and Amy Marcos. Just outside the winning circle are Manny Pacquiao and Willie Revilla-Me. The survey was conducted from May 2 to 6. The results provide a snapshot of current voter preferences ahead of the midterm elections, with implications for the makeup of the next Senate and its role in shaping economic and legislative priorities. Now, the Philippines votes on May 12, and what's at stake goes far beyond politics. The midterm elections will shape the country's economic future, impacting key reforms, public spending, and the institutions designed to keep the government accountable. But with entertainers, controversial figures, and indicted candidates leading the pack, business leaders and policymakers are asking, where is this all headed? Joining us now is Diwa Gunigundo, former Deputy Governor of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, IMF alumnus, and now the chairman of the advisory panel at the ASEAN Plus 3 Macroeconomic Research Office. Hi, sir. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning, Maiki, and thank you for having me here again.
Yeah, we're going to have an interesting discussion ahead of, when everyone votes on May 12th. So, sir, when you look at the current slate of likely senatorial frontrunners based on the latest SWS surveys, what's your initial reaction, and what does this say about our electorate?
Well, to say the least, I am appalled, I'm enraged, and I'm disappointed. Many of these front runners are involved in extrajudicial killing, whether directly or indirectly. They supported the POGO in the Senate and agreed to defund PhilHealth. Those are very important issues. Some of them are also convicted of plunder, but were simply pardoned. And many of them have nothing to offer except their entertainment value. They act, they sing, and they dance. Our country, given its current condition, has the least need of this kind of candidates. We need candidates who have the integrity and honesty, those who have competence and ability, those with experience and track record in public policy. In addition, we need candidates who stand on righteousness and justice, those who would not tolerate, let's say, plunder in government, particularly in the case of Parmali during the time of the pandemic, and those who are also prepared to support the Philippines' claim of various territories in the West Philippine Sea. You see, Mikey, we have a new pope, no, at the Vatican, and I am told, and I read in the papers, that before they tried and discerned who the next pope is, they are given, no, and they discussed among themselves the current state of the globe, of the world, the current state of the church, and on that basis, what kind of pope should we have? On that basis, they chose the pope who is now called Pope Leo XIV. In other words, we need to see what the economy, what our politics require today, and on that basis, determine the kind of appropriate candidates we should vote for on May 12. This is not showing in the Pulse Asia survey, Mikey, unfortunately.
Sir, speaking of the Pulse Asia survey, it paints one picture. But when you look at mock elections at universities like the one at UP Law, they paint a totally different picture. Can you tell us more about why, in your opinion, there's such a stark divide?
Well, it's very clear that the Pulse Asia survey is national in scope. And therefore, that survey captures those among us who are in the fringes of society, those whose educational level is quite limited, and those who are prone to fake news and they have little or limited understanding of what goes on in the economy and in the political situation in the Philippines today. And therefore, you see the kind of results that we have in the Pulse Survey Asia. In the case of the polls among universities and academic institutions, well, this consists of the limited segment of our population who are studying in the university, so they have the capacity to process, the capacity to understand what is going on. And therefore, given the results of those university polls, you don't see the magic 12 in the Pulse Asia survey in the results of the student poll in the universities and other academic institutions.
Sir, what would you say would be the macroeconomic risks? What are the risks to the economy should we perpetuate this sort of government system?
Well, the kind of macroeconomic system that we have is not sustainable and it is not inclusive. When we talk of sustainability and inclusivity, we're talking of what is required by the Philippine economy moving forward. You see, we experienced a 9.5% drop in the real GDP in 2020. That's a big drop, 9.5. The others, the world average was about between 2 to 3% decline. Ours was a big 9.5% decline. On top of that, poverty incidence in the Philippines remains serious. Income inequality continues to persist in the Philippines today. So we need economic growth that is more than the 6 to 8% targeted by the Philippine government. We need to grow more, 9% or more, so that our economy will have a strong growth momentum. We can offer more jobs to those who are unemployed and those who are underemployed. And basically, we need more infrastructure. We need more quality education and reliable public health. If we do not produce a sustainable and inclusive economic growth, those social goals will be impossible to achieve.
You know, at present, our economy is underperforming because there's so much potential, but we need to invest. How do we help our voters, especially the young voters, understand the connection between policy making and the everyday issues that they face? They face issues of lack of jobs, poor education, limited healthcare. How do we help them understand the need for policymakers that understand how to fix things moving forward and not just provide entertainment value?
That's a big challenge, Maiki. You see, in the latest PISA ranking, PISA is a program for international student assessment. We rank among the bottom dwellers. In other words, our students are the weakest, some of the weakest students around the world in reading, in math, and in science. On top of that, we scored very low in terms of critical thinking. Now, critical thinking is very important precisely because that will allow our students, our young voters, to be able to connect the dots. What is the relationship between good economic and political governance and the ability of the economy to grow consistent with the requirements of our population for more jobs, for lower prices, for better budgeting, budget process, so that our priorities will be achieved. So that is a very challenging, that is a very big challenge, Maiki. However, in terms of stopgap, I think the various agencies of government, including BSP, Finance, Budget, NEDA, I think they should try and conduct all of this educational and financial, economic literacy campaign in coordination with their regional offices in the provinces, in the rural areas, and again, in coordination with local governments. In other words, we need to inform our young voters in order to elevate their level of understanding and ability to connect those dots. Otherwise, we will have a problem because our problem is structural. We need to root out the issues in terms of how much budget do we allocate to education? How much budget do we allocate to public health? You know, education and health go together. Okay, we need quality education. We need quality public health so that our students will be instructed and educated properly. And this is possible precisely because they are healthy and they are strong. They receive good nutrition and very good public health facilities. So the problem is very difficult. It's very challenging, and that will require good governance, Mikey.
Now, on another front, sir, universal suffrage, the right of all adult citizens to vote, is a cornerstone of our democracy. But, what can we do to strengthen the systems so that we don't risk economic failure?
Well, again, I go back to the fundamentals. It goes back to the three types of governance, no? Economic governance, political governance, and social governance. You know, several years ago, some researchers tried to take a deep dive into this issue of governance. And governance, and on one hand, an economic growth and per capita GDP. Per capita GDP means a better distribution of income. They are very much correlated. If we have good economic governance, our economy grows faster. But if we have good political and social governance, per capita GDP goes up faster. Okay? In other words, we need governance to be able to do that. So if we get this straight, then even our young voters, even those who are elderly and have some issues about understanding the narrative of our economy, the narrative of our politics, I think they will have some opportunities, okay? The chance to be good voters, good, learned, and well-informed voters when they exercise the right of suffrage.
This Monday, when everyone goes out to vote, we're going to be electing 12 senators. That's half of the composition of the Senate, and it's going to set our economic backdrop moving forward. We have no shortage of good laws in the Philippines, but what's missing in the system? If you could put your finger on it, what are we lacking to help us choose better leaders? What are we lacking to get on a better economic trajectory?
Well, the missing link, Mikey, is strong political and economic institutions, which could ensure competent implementation of those numerous laws. Now, these institutions are necessary to ensure Congress, for example, to translate constitutional prohibition against political dynasties. If we have a strong and competent Senate, they themselves will take the initiative to implement those constitutional provisions. If we have strong executive institutions, both at the national and local levels, those laws, by all means, can be implemented. In the first place, Congress is required to craft implementing rules and regulations that the President and other agencies of government are duty-bound to implement.
Okay, sir, you've served this country for over 4 decades. How do we convince competent professionals like yourself to run for politics? How do we did you ever think about it? And what held you back? Because what held you back is probably what holds other people back as well. They want to do more, they want to serve, but the practicability of it's just, tell us about how what's holding you back and what can we do to pave that road so we get a better pipeline of leaders?
Well, many public servants, I am sure, would like to serve government and even in the private sector, okay? But what pulls them back, of course, is the kind of election process that we have in the Philippines. We have been saying about the kind of front runners we have in the Senate. Okay? We don't want to entertain people to serve government. We don't have the money to spend on billboards and tarpaulins and even on ayudas. We don't have that. But if we can achieve a very thorough overhauling of our electoral system, in other words, we need electoral reforms, okay, to limit, for example, broadcast and print and broadcast time or radio time, limit, exposure in the social media. In other words, standardize the campaigns, and even if the government were to spend on all of these election paraphernalia and the effort to allow the electorate to know more of our candidates and what they can offer, even without spending millions or billions of pesos, I think many good people, both in the government and in the private sector, would be more than willing to serve in the public service.
Yeah, here's to hoping this new batch of leaders will push those electoral reforms forward, the ones that will help level the playing field and help us get a wider array of capable and competent leaders. Now, on another front, one last question, sir, because we have you. Can you give us your take on GDP, the whole macroeconomic environment in a nutshell, because we don't have that much time, where we headed? Q1 GDP came in a little shy of expectations. What does that say about the trajectory for 2025?
I'm not sure if we would be able to achieve even the lower end of the target of 6%. The issue is not about capital reforms or capital market reforms. The issue is not about interest rate policy. The issue is about our ability to produce. The issue is about our ability to inspire confidence among our businessmen and even foreign investors. If we continue to suffer very low scores in terms of corruption index, governance, competitiveness, ease of doing business, we will not be able to have the resources, the ingredients, the elements for a more sustainable economic growth. If we can get our governance right, both political and economic governance, I think it's a big push to achieving good economic numbers. If we can get our budget process better and consistent with the social goals, social objectives of having good quality education, good quality public health system, infrastructure, then we will have a more sustainable, inclusive, and more accelerated momentum of economic growth.
Yeah, we're hoping and praying for the best, especially with the elections ahead. Thank you so much, Sir Diwa Gunigundo, for giving us a lot to mull over and to take stock of as we head into the polls on Monday.
Thank you very much, Maiki, and God bless.
We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line.
Facts matter more than ever. This election isn't just making headlines, it's making history. Led by veteran broadcasters Corina Sanchez Rojas, Pinky Webb, and Ray Langi. Bilyonaryo News Channel and DWAR Abante Radio. We're committed to bringing you clear and comprehensive election coverage. From the campaign trail to your local ballot, we're there. We're combining boots on the ground reporting with the speed of social. It's not just on the news, it's in your feed. Live updates, the voices that matter most. Together, we deliver. Your voice 2025 elections agenda.
questions that matter, the answers you deserve.
This is where ideas clash, visions collide, and perspective change.
Join us live, unfiltered, uncompromising.
Your opinion counts.
Abogado, Thursday,
8:30 p.m. only on
Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Through the insightful discussions and in-depth analysis, we always empowered viewers to better understand the complexities of public affairs. Congratulations, On Point, for winning the Best Public Affairs Program at the 38 PMPC Star Awards for Television. Only here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Lisa, looking back here. Lisa, come on.
Welcome back. Let's check on Asian markets this Friday morning. Right now, let's see how they're doing. Asian markets, Nikkei 225 is higher by 1.4%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index higher by about 0.1%, and Shanghai's Composite going the other way, down by 0.2%, while Singapore's Straits Times Index is in the green, higher by 0.6%. Now, here at home, Philippine stocks dropped Thursday as investors reacted to the weaker than expected Q1 GDP and to fresh global uncertainty from Donald Trump's tariff policies. The main index fell 1.2% to 63.89, snapping out of a two-day winning streak. This after, again, GDP grew just 5.4% last quarter, missing forecasts and falling short of the government's target. With sentiment still fragile, analysts expect near-term trading to remain cautious ahead of more earnings and global risk views. Now, as of 10:33 this morning, the main gauge is in the green, up by 1.2% to 64.65. All shares index up as well, up by 0.7% to 37.65. Now, as for the sub-indices, all are trading in the green except for the mining and oil counter, which is down by about 0.5% in early trade. Now, taking a look at the broader market, volumes at 99 million and value is at over $1 billion. Market breadth is positive with 71 advancers, 58 decliners, and 39 stocks unchanged. Now, taking a look at the currency market, the peso opens weaker at 55.70 to the greenback, depreciating from its previous close of 55.63. Now, Bitcoin surges past the 100,000 mark for the first time since February, as risk appetite returns on the back of a landmark US-UK trade deal. Analysts say that the breakthrough agreement, coupled with stronger global equity markets, is reigniting interest in riskier assets, including cryptocurrencies. The world's most popular digital currency had slumped to $75,000 in April, pressured by the collapse of Libra, along with a wave of hacks and fraud investigations that shook investor confidence. But the tide appears to be turning, with new regulatory frameworks taking shape across the United Kingdom and the European Union. Market watchers say the path toward more transparent, stable digital finance is taking shape, even as volatility remains a core feature. For emerging markets like the Philippines, the surge could spur fresh interest in digital investments, making it even more crucial for regulators to strike a balance between innovation, stability, and consumer protection. On another front, Japan's Toyota slashes its profit outlook, projecting a 3.1 trillion yen or $21.6 billion net income for the current fiscal year. That's a sharp 35% drop from last year's record $33 billion profit, marking a potential turning point for the world's top car maker. Toyota said the decline is largely due to new vehicle tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump, a move that's expected to disrupt global auto supply chains and raise costs for export-driven economies. For emerging markets like the Philippines, a major auto importer and assembly hub, higher vehicle prices could hit consumer demand, delay fleet investments, and weigh on logistics-driven industries. Mercedes-Benz Philippines shifts into high gear with the launch of 2 new plug-in hybrid models, marking a bold push toward electrification and what could be its strongest sales year yet. Our mobility correspondent, G. Baroga, has that story.
Mercedes-Benz Philippines, partly owned by the CATS group of Bilyonaryo Felix Ang, is accelerating its journey into electrification with the launch of 2 new plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, the GLC and the E-Class. This dynamic rollout marks a major milestone in the brand's push for innovation and performance. The new models join the growing electric lineup of Mercedes-Benz, which began in 2023 with the launch of its fully electric EQ series. That bold step resonated with Filipino buyers, leading to over 200 units sold. Now, the company is capitalizing on that momentum.
This is actually a first step for electrification for the Filipino motoring enthusiasts because it offers the best of both worlds. Also solves that anxiety on infrastructure gaps and also the range anxiety.
Each of Mercedes-Benz's new energy vehicle unit comes with a personal charger, with free installation included, making the switch to electric even more seamless.
So we're confident with cooperation, also collaboration with the government entities that we will be able to spread electrification in the country.
With strong consumer interest and a healthy economic climate, Mercedes-Benz Philippines is looking ahead to what could be a milestone year in sales.
We are looking forward to a record-breaking volume this year as the local industry. We hope that this will also bring forward the increase in the luxury segment. GDP is growing in the Philippines, and that in itself as well is going to be a good indicator and hopefully increase mobility for Filipinos.
In the Philippines, the luxury car market is pretty niche, making up less than 2% of the entire auto industry. But early projections from auto experts and industry groups see total vehicle sales cruising toward 500,000 by year-end. Mercedes-Benz Philippines is driving sustainability in more ways than one. Beyond their sleek, eco-friendly rides, they have transformed their flagship showroom into a solar-powered space and is rolling out community programs that help shrink environmental footprint too. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
We're taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. More than 1 billion Catholics around the world, including millions of Filipinos, now have a new Holy Father. Cardinal Robert Prevost has been elected Pope, taking the name Leo XIV in a moment of deep faith and global unity. Crowds in St. Peter's Square erupted in applause as Pope Leo made his first public appearance, delivering a blessing from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. In his brief but powerful address, delivered in Spanish and Italian, the new pontiff thanked his predecessor, Pope Francis, and called on the faithful to embrace a church of peace, mercy, and compassion, especially toward the poor and the suffering. He also delivered his first Urbi et Orbi, blessing meaning to the city and to the world, a momentous tradition that marks the start of his papacy.
La pace sia con tutti voi. Fratelli, sorelle carissimi, questo è il primo saluto del Cristo risorto, il buon pastore che ha dato la vita per il gregge di Dio. Anch'io vorrei che questo saluto di pace entrasse nel vostro cuore, raggiungesse le vostre famiglie, a tutte le persone, ovunque siano, a tutti i popoli, a tutta la terra. La pace sia con voi.
Pope Leo XIV is the first American to lead the Catholic Church and becomes the 267th successor to St. Peter. He begins his pontificate following the death of Pope Francis last month, who was beloved by many Filipinos for his humility, simplicity, and love for those marginalized. U.S. President Donald Trump congratulates Pope Leo on his election as the head of the Catholic Church. Speaking to media, Trump says he's interested in meeting the first American pontiff.
What greater honor could there be? That we were a little bit surprised, but very happy. It's just a great, absolutely great honor.
Are you planning to meet the Pope in the near future? When is that? Do you have a time in mind?
They have already spoken to us, and we'll see what happens. But again, to have the Pope from the United States of America, that's a great honor. That's a great honor. I'm watching, and they said he's from America. I said, that's great.
Other world leaders welcome the new Pope. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance post their congratulations on social media. Former U.S. Presidents Joe Biden and Barack Obama also share messages online, calling it a historic day for the United States. Latin American leaders joined the global outpouring of support for the new spiritual leader of the Roman Catholic Church. It turns out that the newly elected Pope has already set foot on Philippine soil. The Archdiocese of Cebu released photos of then Bishop Robert Prevost during his visit as Prior General of the Augustinian Order. The future pontiff was in Mohon, Talisay City, where he blessed the Augustinian friary and met with local faithful. Now known as Pope Leo XIV, his papacy begins with several historic firsts. He is the first American and the first Augustinian to be elected Pope. A handful of online bettors cash in big after correctly picking Robert Francis Prevost as the next leader of the Catholic Church. On blockchain-based prediction platform Polymarket, 6 users won at least $20,000 each, with public ledgers confirming their payouts. One user using the handle Just Punched took home over $63,000 US. On competing site Kalshi, a single bettor earned $52,000 after Prevost was announced as Pope Leo XIV. The big winnings underscore the growing role of blockchain prediction markets, which are gaining traction worldwide, including among investors looking to hedge against political and religious events. While still a niche space, these platforms are raising broader questions about regulation, insider information, and the financialization of global news cycles. We're taking a quick break. Business 360 will be right back. Tensions flare on the subcontinent, with India and Pakistan trading accusations amid fresh military clashes along the de facto border in Kashmir. Indian officials say Pakistan launched missiles and drones at several military sites. Islamabad denied firing first, but claims it killed up to 50 Indian soldiers and downed more than 24 drones. Pakistan's Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif has since spoken with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, condemning the Indian strikes and vowing to defend the country's sovereignty. Rubio, speaking on behalf of Washington, said the U.S. is closely monitoring the escalation and remains committed to promoting peace and stability in South Asia. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed the Ukraine crisis and other issues during their meeting at the Kremlin on Thursday. Xi said that as long as China and Russia maintain strategic cooperation, no force can stop the two countries from realizing their respective development. The Chinese leader said that he is willing to maintain close contact with Putin to steer the direction of China-Russia relations and make positive contributions to promoting global governance. Putin, for his part, said that the two countries have always overcome difficulties together and have supported each other, forging an unbreakable friendship. On another front, the European Commission launches a public consultation targeting over $170 billion worth of imports from the United States. The bloc warns that retaliatory tariffs could follow if negotiations with Washington fail to produce a deal. The consultation covers a wide range of U.S. exports, including wine, frozen meat, aircraft, and cars. The Commission is also exploring new restrictions on nearly $5 billion worth of EU exports to the United States. Currently, the European Union faces 25% U.S. tariffs on steel, aluminum, and vehicles, plus a 10% baseline duty on most other exports. The 90-day tariff truce imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump is set to expire on July 8, leaving global markets on edge. Trade analysts say the escalating tensions could redirect U.S. and EU demand toward alternative exporters, potentially opening up opportunities for ASEAN markets like the Philippines, particularly in manufacturing, agri-processing, and electronics. Now, Bill Gates pledges to donate $200 billion through his foundation by 2045, a massive commitment to fight disease, reduce poverty, and prevent millions of deaths worldwide. The Microsoft co-founder also announces his foundation will wind down by the end of 2045, aligning with its 25th anniversary this year and accelerating his long-stated plan to give away nearly all of his wealth. Gates says he doesn't want to be remembered for dying rich, but for making a meaningful impact on the world. He also took aim at fellow billionaire Elon Musk and criticized the U.S. government for cutting back on foreign aid, warning that slashes in funding could undo decades of progress in global health. Gates stresses that while philanthropy can help, government support remains crucial to addressing inequality and saving lives.
Polio is one where the Gates Foundation is significantly the biggest funder, but the U.S. government up till now has been the second biggest funder. We need them to rededicate themselves, or else that disease will spread back and again paralyze hundreds of thousands of children. You know, we're talking about tens of millions of lives that have been saved through these partnerships, and you know, everybody should be excited about every single death we avoid.
And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and have a good weekend, and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.